Hey everybody, welcome to the Think Tank with Essentially Sports. I'm super fired up to have national championship winning Texas Volleyball head coach Jerritt Elliott on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Trey. Excited to be on it.
When you think about, the milestones, the things that you created as you built this program, what are the things that stick out the most for you?
I think how much I've had to evolve as a coach and as a thinker in terms of being able to stay up with the times. I think business has always changed. And
how do you balance helping them with, but also staying within regulation and everything that's out there, especially with all the changes?
Two rules that we cannot do is we cannot collect the check and we cannot distribute the check.
What type of impact are you seeing that has, specifically on your sport?
The women's game now has been really consistent in terms of being a better revenue producer for them.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Think Tank with Essentially Sports. I'm super fired up to have national championship winning Texas Volleyball head coach Jerritt Elliott on the show today. Welcome, Jerritt.
Thanks for having me, Trey. I'm excited to be on it.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a blast getting to know you over the last, it feels like a year, but super excited to watch the program this year. I got my burnt orange on. I got to get you one of these brand innovators, burnt orange shirts, and flying the flag today happily. So tell us a little bit about your own personal journey to the University of Texas. You played as a player at Pepperdine and ended up being one of the longest tenured coaches at the University of Texas. Would love to hear how that came to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to make it as short as I can, but I played obviously college volleyball, and when I was done, my degree was in teaching, and I got to be a teacher, and I was coaching my high school girls team, and just fell in love with the sport. And so after my first year, I got hired at a different school. They paid me a little bit more money, and then they gave me an opportunity to start my own club out there. So within a year, I went from just kind of my first year to running a club with about 16 to 18 teams. And I would teach elementary school in the morning, and then I would go coach all throughout the evenings and on the weekends, and just fell in love with the sport. I love kids, and that's why I was a teacher, but I wasn't able to see their development over a period of time. And so when I got into coaching, I just fell in this bug that I could really develop people, and I could really study the game at a high level, and I just became passionate about it. And then the University of Arizona's coach, Dave Rubio, was like, he knew me, and he got me to do a couple of his camps, and he's like, hey, you should really be in the college game and think about it. So at that point, then I shopped around. I actually came down to Texas at the Final Four and asked Mick Haley, who was the coach at the time, to be the volunteer coach then, but he already had a full spot there. And then I became the volunteer coach at USC with the women's side. I had some opportunities to coach with some smaller schools, but I elected to go big school and work my way up. And that's what I did. I was at USC. I ended up finally stopping after 2 years there teaching elementary school, and I became the first assistant. And then my head coach, Lisa Love, was also an administrator, and she ended up getting asked to go full-time administration, so the job opened up at Texas. And while I was there, they were able to interview me, but I was 30 years old and kind of this young up-and-coming coach, and they hired Mick Haley, the Olympic coach, the Texas coach, the former coach, but he had 2 more years on a stint to finish the Olympic Games, so they hired me as the interim coach. I was able to have back-to-back #1 recruiting classes, and we went to the Final Four my second year. And then my second year, I scheduled Texas on, I wanted to schedule Texas because they were struggling a little bit. And this was my dream job because my friend got his MBA down at Texas. And I came down and visited a couple times, and the people were so nice and friendly. And lo and behold, the job opened up at the end of that season. And I was able to interview about 3 months later. And everybody was telling me I wasn't going to get it because I was only 32 years old. And my closest friend called me after the first day, and he's like, what do you think? I go, they're going to offer to me tomorrow. And I said, why? I said, they haven't asked me one question. I've been on a recruiting trip the whole time. And so I was in charge of rebuilding this when we were 10 and 18, and been very fortunate to be able to survive 24 years at Texas, or 25 now.
Wow, that's amazing. And I believe you told me, are you the second longest tenured coach at Texas, or are you #1 now? I can't remember.
I think I'm men's golf, diving. Matt Scoggin has been there, and then myself, I think, are the three coaches.
Wow, congratulations. I mean, that's really an amazing milestone in its own right, to be at any university with the pressure around that university for 2.5 decades. When you think about the milestones, the things that you've created as you built this program, what are the things that stick out the most for you?
Well, I think, how much I've had to evolve as a coach and as a thinker in terms of being able to stay up with the times. I think businesses always change and things change. And so for me, it was always, how do I stay at the top? Because as you said, there's a tremendous amount of pressure. The expectations are to be in the top 10 and win. And if not, then, you have a short lifespan here. And I think in coaching, that can get away from you really fast. And it keeps you awake at night a lot. But, for me, I think it's been able to build a really great foundation. And it's been based on people, hiring the right people, people that really care about the athletes and developing those athletes at a high level.
Well, you've had tons of success at Texas, and going for, if I'm correct, this would be your fourth national championship if we're able to achieve that this year.
Yeah, this will be my fourth, and we're going for a three-peat is what we're trying to achieve.
That's incredible. So, what are the keys to success when you think about maintaining that level of success over longevity, and then also being able to strive for, just winning two in a row. Winning one is incredible. Winning two in a row is remarkable, and certainly it would be a major feat to hit a three-peat, which is super rare in any sport. What are the keys to success?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think luckily I have kind of a crazy brain, and I have lots of thoughts, and a little bit more on the business side at times. So I'm always thinking about how to be innovative and trying to make sure we stay up with the times. But it all kind of happened in 2011. We had lost in the Elite Eight, and just gave me some time to reflect on why I was coaching. And there's so much heartache in terms of you put a whole year into it and you don't win, and then you just go through this whole emotional Pandora's box. And I just remember that I gave myself permission to I was in it because I love kids, and that's why I got into coaching and in developing them. And so I reinvested in that area, and I think that was really something that was really big for me because the communication skills got better. I think the culture has improved tremendously over the years. My maturity in terms of how to handle all the stressors that go on that, and my staff has really grown in that area. So, I think, look, you've obviously we have an incredible university, but we've had to create a lot of different dynamics. A lot of people just think it's about the team that you have on the court, but you got to create, you got to create a brand. You've got to create a fan base. You got to create a community. You got to create people that want to work for you underneath you, and you got to hire the right people to develop them, to identify and then develop those players. And over the years, the school's done a tremendous job of supporting me, and I've got two of the best assistant coaches in the country.
It's one of the things I've appreciated about getting to know you over the past 6 to 7 months is you're certainly innovative and definitely a leader. And I think from what I can tell, you act like a CEO and not just a coach, which I think is probably, as you mentioned, one of your major reasons for success. I know you're a major advocate for women's sports, and it's been really amazing to watch what's been happening in that space. Clearly, the Caitlin Clarks and Angel Reese are doing amazing in basketball, and that's lifting up that sport. Personally, as you know, I'm a big volleyball fan. My daughter's played volleyball. I watch it in the Olympics. It's one of my favorite sports to watch. Who's the person in volleyball that can really lift the sport up as a player and be featured like the Caitlins and Angels of the world?
Yeah, I think we're in a tremendous opportunity right now, right? Obviously, we got the Texas brand, and we're going for a three-peat, but we also have the best player in the country in Madisen Skinner. She is an athlete that started late. She was a dancer and kind of worked her way into it, but she's one of our those once-in-a-decade athletes that come through your program that is at a really high level, and her game has really taken off and playing at a really high level, and she's kind of has that wow factor when you come in. Most men can kind of regulate, like the rim is at 10 feet. She's touching almost 11 feet, and so she's got this physical component when you see to it, and the speed and the power of the game is so amazing when you come in person. And she's the one that has the star power. And not only is she a great volleyball player, but she's a great teammate. She speaks really well, and she's able to kind of articulate the things that need to go on as a premium athlete.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt about it. I remember the first night we met was at, I think, South by Southwest at a Brand Innovators event, and you brought her and Reagan Rutherford who's also an amazing player, and I think transferred out, from Kentucky to Texas, which is an incredible job getting another great athlete to come in for the run. But definitely spent a ton of time with Maddie, and there's no question she is a She's very polished and very professional. And we've taken her around to Brand Innovators events, as you know, to France, and she did a remarkable job there. You know, one of the things, I think I told you this, that really amazed me about that is there was all these professional athletes, women and men, at the Cannes Lions Festival. There was only 3 college athletes that we saw there, and they were all women, and only 1 volleyball player. So it was Madisen, and then there was Juju Watkins and Flage from LSU that were there, and both basketball. So Madisen definitely represented the team well, and you well, and the University of Texas. So it was an honor to have her come and join us. So let's talk a little bit about, NIL. I mean, there's just been so much that's been changing since over the last several years, right? And, what type of impact are you seeing that have, specifically on your sport?
Well, I think, I don't know what goes on in the other programs. I just know what I'm trying to accomplish. I think one of the things I wanted to use this for is because I'm about education and being to me, it's about my athletes, but not why they're just here, but long term. So we've been able to connect a really group of special women together that have been mentoring our athletes and trying to be able to start businesses with them and trying to get kind of their own brands eventually to be able to do that. But, being able to meet you and Brand Innovators and be able to bring them kind of around our program has been really interesting to kind of learn about the business of brands and what they're looking for. And now you start seeing all these ROIs in terms of what athletes bring to the table. And, the women's game now has been really consistent in terms of being a better revenue producer for them. So, it's about educate. I've had to now become a coach, but I've also had to become kind of a business teacher to my athletes in terms of understanding what an LLC is, what an S Corp is, how do you market yourself, how do you interact with fans, and how do you grow your base to be able to do that. And then ultimately, how do you position yourself to do something long term that can really take care of you at a really high level? And so NIL has really changed. Obviously, there's a money factor that's big for the athletes that they've never had an opportunity to deal with before. But this is a tremendous opportunity that we've really kind of had to shift hard right on to become an expert on to make sure that we're creating something that is impactful for our athletes.
And I know I feel like you got to keep up with the regulation every day. I know one of the difficult things as a coach has been always like how do you balance helping them but also staying within regulation and everything that's out there, especially with all the changes. Have there been any new changes that are allowing the coaches to talk to brands more than they have in the past?
Yeah, I got word yesterday, and I need to double check this with my compliance, but they're basically taking off the gloves and letting us kind of go out and represent the athletes. Like, we can go do deals. There's 2 rules that we cannot do: is we cannot collect a check and we cannot distribute the check. But if we meet people that want to come in and be a part of our program, get behind our athletes, we can have those conversations, and I can be out there, or our staff can be out there being able to do that.
I think that's amazing. I think part of the problem with NIL from day one is the ambiguity around it, and not to say anything negative about the NCAA, but all the rules. It's been very difficult for everybody to understand how do you navigate that and operate and stay within compliance and be fair to the athletes, so the athletes can really take advantage of it. So it's great to hear that it's continuing to evolve.
Yeah, I think it's evolving, and I think what they want is true market value, right? That's what the ultimate goal was. They didn't want boosters coming in and handing you a bag of $1 million and being able to do something like that. They want these athletes to actually being able to do real deals and they'll have a task force out there, kind of, I think, to be able to kind of monitor that a little bit more. And so I think that's ultimately it's a wonderful opportunity. Times have changed, but if these athletes and we can create the right foundation for them, there's a tremendous opportunity to kind of build their own brand. And it's great for sports. It's great for growing the game. You're seeing what's happened in the women's game, and it's a tremendous opportunity. And I'm a big believer in the game of women's volleyball, and to me, there's the best atmospheres in the country.
Well, unfortunately, being at the University of Texas, I think, is also super helpful when it comes to the portal and things there. Certainly everybody loses and everybody wins a little bit, but I kind of liken it to, I remember when NFL football went from their normal standard to free agency, and at first everybody was upset it's going to ruin the game, but then ultimately everybody adjusts, and it's kind of exciting to go out there and try to get that missing piece to help you win, but certainly can recognize it can be frustrating too, because you're constantly having to recruit your current players. You got to recruit portal players. You got to recruit high school athletes. So I'm just curious, what is your perspective on the portal?
Yeah, I think it's a business change, right? It's another hard right that you've had to be able to change based on kind of what the NCAA has kind of modeled itself after. Is it the ideal situation? No, but I think there's lots of advantages to it. I think it's forcing coaches to, as you said, they got to take care of their athletes more. And so if athletes are treated better, if they've got a great home and they feel comfortable about what they're doing, then coaches shouldn't lose them unless they're looking for an opportunity to play if they're not getting major playing time. So for me, it's been great. I think we look at it in terms of building a culture around that and having success after it. But it's no different than recruiting. I mean, it's always been a recruiting game. It's just a different role, a different place now.
So when we think about the state of Texas, it's always been it's a huge state. Athletics is extremely important in this state, really across all sports. You've had all kinds of legends grow up here, from Shaq to Lance Armstrong to Earl Campbell, and the list goes on, and a number of female athletes as well. What does Texas look like from a volleyball perspective? Is volleyball a big sport in Texas, and would you consider it to be one of the bigger states for volleyball, high school and elementary and growing up through the state?
Yeah, it's tremendous. I mean, I would say it's the best volleyball state in the country right now. I think the Longhorn Network had a big play in that. We were featured on all of our games there, and they were able to watch our players kind of developing and watching what was going on and create some role models, right? I think it's really important that when you were able to watch and fall in love with players, obviously it makes our recruiting a little bit better. And so the state of Texas has always been our priority. We've wanted to put a fence around that and make sure that we keep the best players at home and being able to do that. And so the state of Texas has been great. We've got really good club coaches and high school coaches that have really developing the athletes at a high level. And there's a lot of continuity between the coaches to make our sport better in the state.
When you think about rivals, that certainly the traditional rivals of the school are, OU and A&M, and we're about to start playing Arkansas again, which will be interesting. And it was funny, we had at one of the Brand Innovators events, we had Rory Harmon, for the point guard for the basketball team, and I asked her, I said, "Who's your biggest rival?" And she goes, "Look, I know the fans' biggest rivals are those schools, and I get it. But I don't like Texas Tech," right? And she went into the reason why. I'm curious from your perspective and the team's perspective, who are the biggest rivals in volleyball for the University of Texas?
Well, you saw it in the national championship game. Right? Obviously, when teams start competing for national championships over a long period of time, there becomes a natural rivalry, and it's great for the sport. But Nebraska and us are obviously been going head to head for a lot of these years and really pushing each other around on different years to get to the top of that mountain. I think A&M was a great, when I got here, that A&M had our number early on, and since then we've had a lot of success. But I think they've got a new good coach, and I think the game is growing. So I'm expecting that we're going to sell out the arena at Texas A&M. So that should be a very hostile environment to be a part of. But I think teams that you contend for championships for, at least when you're at the Texas, that becomes more of a rivalry. Florida was in that ballpark for a while, but we haven't played them in so long that it's kind of dissipated from our players in terms of their mindsets. None of these players have played that. Kentucky beat us in the national championship in 2020, so we'll get a chance at them at their place. But we're getting no favors in the SEC the way that we open up at A&M, at Florida, and at Kentucky pretty early on.
So was Madisen and her sister were on that Kentucky team, weren't they?
Yeah, yes, they were.
So had to go and get her. It's like when the Cowboys went and got Deion Sanders, and brought her.
When she went in the portal, she actually told me no.
Really?
And I had to beg to get on a phone call with her, and then we spent about an hour on a phone call together, and she said, "You know what, I'll come take a look." But she had a completely different perspective in terms of what our program was about compared to what she saw from the outside.
Really? Well, she's a Texas girl too, right? She
is.
Everything.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a big recruitment, no doubt about it. So, one of the reasons I love watching our team or watching the Longhorns is, it's fast-paced, aggressive, attack style. Can you talk a little bit about your coaching philosophy?
Yeah, I think my coaching philosophy has obviously changed a little bit. I think, as you mentioned earlier, I've become a little bit more of a CEO. I've hired two really good coaches, and David Hunt, who was the 2016 Olympics, and he was the head men's coach at Pepperdine University. Eric Sullivan, my other associate head coach, so I've got two of the premier coaches in the entire country, and this job has taken on so much for me that we work together and we collaborate, but I give those guys a lot of responsibility in terms of developing our team and having responsibilities. David's our offensive coordinator, Eric's our defensive coordinator, and kind of we're working together as a unit to make it really successful. But the philosophy is always about people. I lost my mom in 1999, and the last words she said to me were, "Good people love people." So we've really tried to create a community around that and try to behave that way and work through kindness and a lot of gratitude and making sure that, I think in college, 18 to 22, I think we all recall that's like the best time of our life. But we also realized that we were basket cases back then, and like you're trying to learn about life and the perspective of growing every 7 years and being older to be able to give back to that age group of like understanding the struggles that they have, right? And so understanding and helping them, knowing that every day is not a perfect 10 and being there for them and building trust and being a role model for them to be able to be vulnerable and really learn to be to work through the challenges that we have emotionally, because I think we're all going through it, and it's kind of this silent thing that nobody talks about, but we try to make it pretty prevalent and make sure that our kids are in a good spot and are there for them.
That's incredible.
The other part about this is we have Love Volleyball, the new pro league that's happening in Austin, and we've got 8 of our former players. So my wife likes to call it Texas 2.0 because a lot of our greats are going to be playing and performing in that. Chiaka, Asia, Logan, Zoe, Kat Bell, Julianne Fawcett, Sage. I mean, it's an amazing group that will be together. And Molly McCage.
When does that league kick off again?
That should start in November.
Okay. And do you know where they're playing yet? Or have they got that all finalized?
I don't have those in front of me.
Okay. Well, that'll be pretty exciting to see all the homegrown talent right there with the professional team, and I know we've got the Olympics coming to LA, right, and in 4 years. So hopefully Maddie will be a big part of that team, and some of the other players and Asia will be on that team as well.
Yeah, hopefully we have 3 or 4. Maybe Logan gets on there as well, and it should be exciting. And
so
Zoe,
we have
a lot of players in the mix for that.
Yeah, I bet. I would suspect there would be, and maybe even some more here over the next year or two. I think you mentioned a little bit, maybe some of the challenge of your first year and that kind of stuff. But has there been a major challenge in your coaching career that you had to overcome that you'd like to share?
My major. I think the biggest one that I had to. We took the program over at 10 and 18 and trying to make sure that. I picked the wrong retirement program because I didn't know what I was going to do if I was going to be successful right off the bat. But it's, I think the challenges at Texas there's just a tremendous amount of pressure, and, to be able to overcome and try to be able to build faith that you could actually build something special here was a lot of heavy lifting early on with a lot of different athletes. And fortunately, we got some buy-in from some athletes that saw the vision and believed in the vision. But I think that's one of them. And now it's just been, I feel like I'm, as one of the older coaches, like there's this responsibility to grow the game, to develop the game, to continue to give different facets or different looks about our program where we can help the athletes become more successful women on and off the court, but also, have the right mentality to hopefully be a great significant other someday.
You talked about being a pillar for the sport of volleyball. I'm always curious in any given sport how much those coaches share with one another, because you're trying to lift a sport up, you're trying to make sure you get the biggest audience possible, you're trying to take care of young women and mentor them, which you started out as a teacher and everything that you mentioned earlier. How often do coaches in the same sport actually communicate around things like that?
I think our sport's developing in that area a lot. I think there's some things that we're doing to try to grow the sport together and make that happen. We have this platform coming out where we're going to be doing some stories where you'll see here in a couple of weeks of, with Maddie or Whitney or Emma. But I called Sheffield from Wisconsin and Mary from Florida, and we've been able to get some other athletes on board. And they're like, well, why are you calling me if you're going to, because this is a tremendous opportunity for Texas. And I said, look, we already have a great brand. We want to do this, but we want to grow the game, and we want to create more excitement around the game. And I think the more that we do that, we can grow the game together and make this a real big possibility.
Like I said, that's always interesting to me. So, outside of volleyball, what are other things that you're interested in? Do you play basketball or ski, or what are the other hobbies that interest you?
Well, one of my dear friends, almost my second dad, told me once that you're good at everything and great at nothing. So I play a lot of sports, played all of them. I'm really into pickleball right now. I was on a ski team when I was younger, so I'm getting ready to go over to the Dolomites and at the end of January to do skiing probably for a week. So those are my, and then traveling is my biggest passion. Fallen in love with Costa Rica here in the last year. Just that place is pretty special. My wife and I just got back from France. We went to the island of Corsica and then went over and watched Chiaca in the Olympics and watched the beach volleyball as well. So that was a real cool opportunity.
That's amazing. Well, I'm a big Costa Rica fan too, so pura vida.
Yeah,
so any piece of advice you'd give to aspiring volleyball players, 12, 13, 14-year-olds that want to come play for the University of Texas or some other major program someday?
I get that a lot. I'm gonna come play for you, coach. When little kids come up to me at like 9 years old, I love it. I think the biggest thing is they got to have a passion and enjoy the game and realize that it's a lot of fun. And I think right now with the way the pressures of club volleyball, parenting and all the parents and all that stuff, like let these kids be kids, find vacation times for themselves to be normal, and just, you're going to be good enough if you have a passion for the game. And your athleticism will take you as far as your parents gave you the genes to be able to do. And so we find that just kids that love the game, that have great respect for the game, that have a lot of gratitude for the coaches and the people they're around, those are the people that fit our mold at Texas.
That's awesome. Well, what you have any bold sports prediction? You don't have to Babe Ruth call your shot for another national championship, but what would be your big bold prediction out there in sports? Anything you have?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the biggest year ever in women's volleyball. I think that's where we're seeing is the development of that. I think we're going to start setting records all over the place in terms of attendance is where we go and what we're getting. And we're just so excited to be working with, people like you that develop the brands that, want to get behind the sport of volleyball, that want to tell storytelling, because people that come to these games and see these games and see what kind of tremendous athletes these women are blown away when they get into the gym and see the environment. And I'm excited about it. I'm super excited about the fall season with our women's soccer team. I think they've got a shot to get to the Collegiate Cup, and Sark obviously has a team now that is going to get ready to go with the big boys in the SEC, and I think he has a team to compete at a high level to bring home a national championship.
Yeah, going to the SEC is super exciting. I live with a wife that went to the University of Alabama, so now it's turned into a real family rivalry. We're both in the same conference together, so excited about all of that. And I know you've got, a podcast that'll be coming out pretty soon. Do you want to share with the audience a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, we're going to start that with, I think one of the things that's a little bit different to me is I'm obviously the volleyball coach and running my program, but we're also trying to develop women and grow the game. So it's going to be called Dig Deeper. It's going to be about 10 minutes on our program. We're going to talk about the development and bringing business people into these podcasts and talking about how that relates to sports and also where we can take the sport and the development of all that. So it should be fun. There should be about 4 or 5 of us, and hopefully we'll get you on that show as well.
Love to join. Really excited to tune into that as well, and really appreciate you joining today. Super fired up to come watch the volleyball team. We're not too far away from not kickoff, but for everything, right? For the entire fall season.
We'll start, baby.
So pretty thrilled.
We're
about
excited.
that.
We start on Friday.
What's that?
We're excited. We start on Friday. Our first match is at Milwaukee against Wisconsin, which they should be a top 3 team along with us, and so there's going to be some really good competition this year.
That's one of those rivalries we talked about earlier, right? You guys are always competing with them, so starting the season off. And I think, if I remember correctly, we beat them in the Final Four last year. Was that right?
We did. We beat them in the Final Four last year, yes. So and then we open up SEC at Texas A&M, which, every person's going to come out from everywhere to cheer on A&M. And so our athletes haven't experienced that atmosphere in quite some time.
No, they're going to be rabid. That's going to be a rabid fan base. There's no doubt about it. Well, I've seen some of that hardware over at your house, so I hope you get to bring some more of it home this year. And really looking forward to watching the team progress and the sport progress. And really appreciate our friendship. Appreciate you joining the show, and hook 'em.
Okay, thank you so much.